We are going to kick off this fireside chat on leveraging data insights to drive higher conversion and customer acquisition rates across customer journey. So here we've got our presenters, Mario Invernizzi, the VP Sales EMEA from Snipp Interactive. Also joining Mario, we have Alexander Haldane, the Trade Marketing Lead, Goose Island at AB InBev. Fun fact about these two, Mario enjoys climbing mountain walls outdoors and also help brands to climb to success. Alex, very interesting, you used to be a chef. The stage is yours. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start and breaking the ice here. And thanks for the introduction. Thanks for everybody attending this event today, and we will try to do the best for making it worth it for you. Thank you, Lynn, for the introduction about my non-business experience. This helping me to say some of you, mostly from England, will not that happy today to have a conversation with an Italian guy after what happened 2 weeks back in the European Championship. So I'm not a very deep fan of soccer, so giving you a bit of relief. And so be relaxed and talk about marketing, okay? Yeah, Snipp, just a little bit of introduction. Snipp is a Canadian-based company producing and implementing and delivering to the market a customer acquisition, reward, and engagement platform. And actually myself have been dealing for the last 12, 13 years in this environment, being loyalty or engagement or extending CRM or extended consumer activation and execution. So we help brands with leveraging the asset and the channels and logically the goods and the SKUs they produce for acquiring more and more consumer along the omni-channel paradigm and keeping them, making them happy to come back and increase awareness, brand awareness, as well as membership or client population, as well as the bottom line, and so revenue and share of wallet. But the real guest today of this discussion is my friend Alex. So Alex, please, would you mind just introducing yourself, and then we jump into what the main item of the conversation today will be.
Great, yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Mario and Lynn, for the introduction. Yeah, as Lynn mentioned, I used to be in food, now in beverage, looking after all aspects of trade marketing, which is also called shopper marketing, I know, in some domains. This is with a European scope, because for context, Goose Island is a craft brewery who were acquired by AB InBev in 2011. And we have a European footprint across the UK as our main market, but also in continental Europe, in particularly France, Italy, and the Netherlands. The way we're structured within AB InBev, which is unusual, is with a fully focused team operating on the brand rather than being sort of sold in as part of a portfolio. And that gives us a more holistic view of the brand, which I think makes this topic particularly relevant because we are very focused on driving exponential growth on this brand specifically, which requires from the smaller base that we have versus the bigger AB InBev brands, we really need to understand our consumer very deeply at the early stage of our growth in order to unlock potential. So looking forward to talking through this topic. Okay, cool. Thank you, Alex. So, I mean, you all see the title here and what the matter is going to be. I mean, the main point we are going to be highlighting are data insights and how this data might be driving a deeper conversion and acquisition rate. And another very relevant item here is consumer journey, will come as a second part of the session. So let me start and kicking off here. Let me ask you something, Alex. You are trade manager for these three major channels, offline, online, and DTC. I'm sure that consumers interacting with your brand along these different channels are going to be sharing different data to you, as well as this data might be different by channel
by activity, by experience, as well as the insights that you're going to be collecting from this data will be different and will be eventually driven to a different purpose. So all in, what is your experience in terms of and how Goose Island is actually managing such a heterogeneous data within the different channels that you offer to your consumer to dialogue with your brand?
No, it's a good question. I think, yeah, I'll address it, I guess, not actually in the order it's on the slide, because I'll start with on-trade, which is particularly, I think, in the business that we operate in. The on-trade is always where they say sort of brands are built, because it's the experiential home of the brand, where it's sort of enjoyed in the setting that I think most beer brands try to drive association with, which is kind of the higher energy occasions and elevating the experience. However, in the on-trade, data is particularly difficult to come by, especially in the model that most breweries of our scale pursue, which is an indirect model, so via third-party wholesalers. And then in the off-trade, you obviously have a much more concentrated marketplace in terms of the retailers, which does mean you get better data. However, it's often very transactional. And so I think this is where it separates into two parts of what you're trying to get out the data. I think from a trade marketing point of view, ROI data, and particularly kind of more commercially driven performance data, the off-trade, in all markets we operate in, that there is good transactional data. It still requires quite a lot of sort of synthesizing across the different retailers. However, it's still difficult to get one level beneath that to kind of get into the more insight driven data, and that's where it kind of comes onto the third pillar in that list, which is D2C, because as I alluded to in the introduction, we are a brand with obviously a big ambition, and we think a big runway for growth. To unlock that, we need to understand our consumers and understand how they interact with the category better. And that's not necessarily about transactional data, although it can be, because of course you can learn what consumers are doing with other brands, how they're buying into the category but not into you. However, we don't necessarily understand the motivation, and so that's where not having that direct link to your consumer can limit you somewhat, because you're always one step removed, but you're also sort of you have to operate within the calendar and the ways of working of these big retailers. So you can't do micro scale innovations, you can't do small data set surveys. If you're playing with the big off-trade retailers, you of course need to do things at scale, but we want to learn before that so that we make good decisions. So that's why we launched, and we think it's very important, a direct-to-consumer site, because that enables us to have a first-party connection with our consumers. And naturally, we know that those are the most engaged. The consumers that come to your direct-to-consumer site are almost by definition the more engaged consumers, because they've gone onto your website, they've hunted you down, or they've converted from one of your activities. So sort of understanding your tribe, if you call it, your sort of fanatic consumer, gives you a lot of learnings to apply back to the main part of your business, which is the two largest channels. So we use D2C as a tool to get kind of qualitative and quantitative, but particularly sort of qualitative and early concept testing. That's what that's the sort of consumer data that is particularly valuable to us in understanding our consumers.
Okay, that was a very exhaustive explanation of the different way you're running through these different data and different channels. So let me make one point here, and underlining a couple of items that you just say about. One is data typology. The other one is you also, and logically also keen to look for other competitor data, meaning within your consumer experience, you are happy not just to analyze purchase information, you say, logically is one of the most important topics, but it's not the only one. And so you're also looking to understand which kind of behavior, which kind of non-purchase direct activity your consumer are executing while dialoguing and interacting with you among the channels, as well as you're also interested somehow, let's say, to look which other beers Mario's drinking or which our beverages Mario's drinking. And so you need to make a kind of analysis of the, let's say, the basket that your consumers along the offline and online business are executing your acquisition experience. So let's go for a first poll. And here, based on Alex's point and based on this last slide we just ran through, I'd like to understand about the audience here, if you are already collecting within your promotion, within your DTC, within your interaction with your end consumer and client, you're already collecting and you're keen to collect transactional as well as non-transactional information. So we have been talking so far about zero-party data most of the time. So data that explicitly a consumer is sharing, is giving, is transferring to the brand. So which of these data you feel more valuable? And please, Alex, chime in just to give the time to reply to the audience. Mm-hmm. Which one of these, beside the transactional one, you see most relevant to your business?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I think you alluded to, and I think we'll touch on it in consumer journey, but it's all about understanding how they shop the category, and what needs and motivations is your brand addressing for them, but versus other ones. So it's kind of to understand what the key barriers are. That's what I would do. So I guess that probably falls into preferences.
Okay. So let's see what the reply here are. So we have a nice less than 20% for transactional, and preferences is almost, the 65% of it. Extended demographic, not so much geodata, as well as, I don't see the number here, honestly speaking. Don't understand, looks to be a nice 91%, can be. I see the arrow on the top of it. But let's say that the biggest one is preferences, and honestly, preferences is a pretty broad concept that really means the willingness of brand to really understand what members really likes or dislikes and how they want to behave in respect to the brand. So I believe we are all aligned here. Any comment from your side, Alex, before I turn to the next?
No. I think as you say, it's reassuring to know. I think we're all in agreement that essentially preferences is understanding those barriers, and I'm trying to understand your consumer better. So no, that makes sense to me. I'm glad I didn't say interest, because
Okay. So let me ask you a second topic. So in my last, I believe at least 10 years, or just a bit less, we have been discussing with brands like yours more and more about consumer journey. And the more people are putting the clients, I would say as a beginning, but then I like to say a member at the very center of their marketing strategy, the more the consumer journey that the brand is offering to a member becomes relevant. And actually, I see brands started already to build what I like to name as a virtual cycle, where the more the brand is engaging with the consumer, the more the consumer is happy, is felt valuable by the brand, not only when he or she buys, but also when we read, we chat, we share information, we are posting, we are interacting along the different channels. And the more we are engaged, the more we live and we share first-party data to our brand. But then the most important part of the virtual cycle starts, where the brand has to commit a commitment, meaning I'm sharing data to a brand, and now I wanted the brand using that data. I wanted the brand to become more personal to me. I wanted the brand to understand me. I'm different to everybody else. And so started to move from a one-to-many communication, one promotion fits all, to a more individualized kind of communicating to the member. And at the end of the day, if this is happening, I'm coming back more frequently, I'm making more acquisition, I'm increasing my share of wallet with your brand. What is your take in here, and how you are trying to kind of accommodate your strategy to follow this virtual cycle as I'm describing it?
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's a really good question, and I think it kind of, it again feeds back to what I've been saying, but it's also, I think, it talks to the way that I think brands sort of are increasingly organizing their entire sort of commercial strategy, which I think, this is particularly something that I know we've been looking into, is starting with the consumer, which is a kind of, I think, a different way than sometimes starting with the commercials. And so if we start with looking at where the opportunity is, with what using category data here, so sort of macro level data, you look at the opportunity, and then you're doing a job of understanding a group of people who aren't shopping your brand but could be, or aren't shopping it perhaps as often as you would like, and then understanding, as you say, what are the things that really matter to them. So following them the full way from the macro level of considering your product right through to purchase and engagement, and following the full way to create activations and brand associations that really mean something to them. So it was actually something we mentioned on slide 4 about sort of how they shop the category. If you understand their preferences and their motivations for entering the category, then you can help them to do it more often by providing solutions, rewards, or even just brand associations that make them understand when to consume your product. So yeah, for us, that's how I see the consumer journeys. I see it as starting with the high level data of how big is your opportunity, but then drilling down into the reasons why these consumers that you're targeting do or do not shop the category, and then solving those problems for them in a meaningful way. And I say in trade activation, it can be with reward, but it can also be with messaging and associations between particular occasions. And obviously in marketing, which is not my remit, it's a more high level kind of awareness driven piece. But that's why I think, as you say, getting first party data is an important part of this, and that's where we bring the D2C model to bring it omni-channel, so that you're bringing these people into your world, and then at each iteration understanding them more deeply and better serving their needs, because that's how you drive category participation, obviously by meeting the needs of your consumers.
Okay, thank you. I see that. That's on your side to me. Yep.
Yeah. No. So I think, we've had some good conversations, and me coming from a brand point of view, we know that loyalty was a fashionable word, but it is now, the name of the game is about driving participation, because particularly from Byron Sharp's How Brands Grow, which I know is a sort of Bible for many, including me, but we know that like buyers drive the majority of volume. So I've always been sort of wary of the word loyalty, and in favor of driving constant reacquisition. How do you think platforms, or how do you think trade marketing needs to evolve from that mindset of loyalty towards constant reacquisition?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, it would require a big conversation, but to try to be short here for time's sake, I believe that there has been a big shift between what we name as a loyalty practice and platform along the last 20, 15 years where we are now. And one of the big shifts that I see now is more and more about personalization, or we are starting using the word individualization. That means the point is we are really bombarded by brands. That's the reality, right? For my business sake, but also for my personal activity, I'm part of many, something like 60 plus loyalty program or promotion, cycle promotion for specific brand and CPGs for my life, but also for testing that kind of business, understanding the member reaction. Because I believe the best way is putting ourselves as a member, as we should, and thinking how we like, how we dislike when we receive some kind of one-fit-all communication or one-to-many communication that is executed in the same way by a brand, regardless the famous zero-party data, first-party data I'm sharing to a brand. And so to me, for managing this continuous cycle of activation, reactivation, is more about keeping an ongoing high-level discussion and engagement. And the best way for doing so, if you think about yourself, what you like the most, when you talk to somebody, actually you're talking to a brand, to be understood. So if we are receiving among the mass of the communication that we are all receiving from the brands, we receive communication, information, promotion, content that we like, that we feel pertinent to ourselves, that we feel relevant to us, then we open it up. We agree, we share, we post, we engage, and we like to be engaged. And at the end of the day, the activation and reactivation cycle is much easier and smooth because we are keeping this long-lasting conversation with the brand until the brand, again, is committing the commitment to come back to me with personal information, with contextual information that resonate to me. So I've been hearing a lot in the last year about, again, putting the member at the very center of the conversation. This, to me, is really helping brands to keep going, managing such kind of interaction and coping with the continuous need of activating and reactivating a member, individualization or personalization.
No, that's interesting, and yeah, there's questions I could ask, but I'll save those for the end if we have time. But then this is another one from me, and it's probably relevant because we've been discussing the role of D2C, and obviously you are a provider of services that perhaps sometimes or in the past were only provided by the big retailers. Who previously sort of pioneered loyalty programs. And I know we're now past loyalty and into acquisition, but how do you see this balance of power shifting? Because of course our sort of big customers, particularly in the UK, say off-trade, they're our big partners, and like we succeed when they succeed, but they also succeed when we succeed. So how do we drive growth through sort of platforms outside of the traditional channels without damaging relationships with our biggest partners?
That's a very, very good item. And if you remember, one of the first, let's say now DTC connection, we all used to dialogue since many years back, is where we are buying electronics, right? If you buy a fridge, if you buy a laptop, then you ask to go to the brand portal for registering yourself for the warranty. But at the end of the day, we're unclear at that time, eventually, why just for making a warranty, you were asked so many questions. And actually, we were sharing data about us, and was the brand, as you say, bypassing the channel, asking the end user information about him or herself. So this is now a big wave. This is now a big wave that nobody's going to be stopping. And as a matter of fact, brands like your brand started to dialogue and to interact directly to the end user. But this is not to be seen as a fight against the channel, thanks to which you are actually making the biggest chunk of your business, right? And so the way it works at the end has to be a win-to-win-to-win situation where the three main actors are the brand, the channels, as well as the end consumer, ourselves as a consumer. And if you establish a situation where everybody's bringing value to the other one, everybody's a winner. What I mean here is, I like beer. But if I want to buy a beer, if I want to talk about a beer, if I want to tell to Goose Island what my next flavor I would like to buy from Goose Island is, I necessarily am going to talk into Goose Island. I'm not talking to the channel. I'm not talking to anybody else than the brand. Nobody more than the brand can dialogue with an end user in a very relevant way about its own SKUs, its own product. So let the brand talk into the end user. In this way, you are creating awareness. That is one of the three major pillars for every loyalty or promotion business that you wanna launch. Because the more, again, you are giving relevant information to me about your brand, the more I'm gonna be buying back from your brand. Now, I'm working for an American company, so every morning when I wake up, I got all the mail about the number of the business, mostly for the promotion and the loyalty one that we close in North America and Canada. 2 out of 5 of such business that we close are jointly executed with a given channel. So you brand create the appropriate awareness, then you create a promotion, you create an activation, thanks to which the reward, so the give and get that you're giving to your member is bringing back the member to go to your channel, is increasing your foot traffic into the channels. So it can be a nice mix of reward, still related to your SKUs, to your beer in this case, but you are inviting people to go back and buy more beer from the channel. And so the channel is partnering with you in that promotion. Or you are also adding as an added value for your rewarding schema some extra services of the channels. They might be free shipping. They might be whatsoever you like, that even a grocery place can actually provide as an added value to me as a brand. So again, if we deal with a win-to-win-to-win, or I would say let's include another fourth angle, that is the market provider. So with the appropriate platform so that you can enable omni-channel Stripe promotion that are absolutely interesting and resonating to the end user in terms of the rewarding capability, if you will, then is a goal. And for sake of time, sorry, just to not give you Alex to make some more questions on that, but for sake of time, because we want to give a bit of Q&A time, here we are introducing the last poll, and the last poll is about the last mile. The last mile in every conversation with the consumer in a give and get, in a promotion, in a loyalty place is what I'm giving back to my consumer on the top of the content that we discussed about in this half an hour, but in terms of real SKUs, real value. And so another comment to me is working with a company who is able to extend to the maximal level the personalization of the reward. That means at the end of the day, and here it comes with a question for you, when are you executing your promotion, your campaign, your loyalty program, your reward schema, your rebate? Are you already considering a mix of reward items? So are you keen to bring back the traffic to your loved channel, as Alex was saying, to try to avoid this is going to be a fight between the brand or the channel, or you're just giving closed-loop gift card for having your consumer coming back to your DTC? Alex, you can pick up now and say what your feeling is about that.
No, I thought what was coming to mind when we talked. I guess we talked initially about the whole issue of bamboozling consumers with offers. When I think of the best examples of a platform of constant reacquisition, they are ones which, as you say, first of all, they don't try to monopolize it necessarily back to, say, the D2C. They're very agnostic about where the consumer shops. They give rewards on a flexible basis, like, I don't know, Starbucks probably is the one that comes to mind, of where it is driving results for the brand and for the customer, but whilst also for the brand, giving them access to the first party data, but delivering the results for the customer. And it's organically engaging for the individual who has an incentive to keep going back. But let's see what the result.
Nice. So I like to say that most of you are claiming, and we all trust you, that you do not want to bring back just to your brand all the value of this conversation, of this engagement, and you are executing for 1/3 of the time a mix of these, and most of the time you're very interested to servicing additional value, not just economical value, but experiential reward, and yeah, I mean, VIP treatment and experience reward to your consumer. So that's a very good reply to my eyes based on this conversation. I don't know what you believe, Alex, and then let's open the Q&A, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be quick. But yeah, I agree. I think it shows that the importance of, achieving the results both for the brand and for the customer, by understanding the consumer better. Because I think we all understand that challenge.
I like the 0% on the last question, honestly speaking. I mean, and that is a clear statement for the brand and the DTC versus the channels, guys. Okay.
All right. Alexander, Mario, thank you so much for a really insightful session. Do you want to make sure we have time for at least one audience question before we come to a close for the session? And the question comes from an audience member who asks, what are the main loyalty KPIs we should measure? And Mario, would you like to kick us off for this one?
Yeah. So typically, high level, 3 different levels of KPIs. First one is awareness, brand awareness. You do execute loyalty because you want to increase brand awareness in a different way, in a different method, but that's the first KPI. Second KPI is logically, you want to execute a loyalty program for making more acquisition and keeping retention high. And so what about your client population? What about your consumer population? What about your interaction and engagement response from the population, from your client? And the third one is logically, increasing the bottom line. And so what about your revenue stream? What about the added value of the extended revenue generated by loyalty member versus non-loyalty member? How the frequency is changing? How the share of wallet is changing. These are the 3 main KPIs when you compare loyalty versus non-loyalty member. That the quickest way to reply. Could be a longer discussion, but I believe it's okay.
Yeah, indeed. I think we could have a whole session perhaps on loyalty KPIs. Yeah. And just one really quick one, very succinct, is loyalty dead?
Oh, wow. Hopefully not. I don't know, Alex, you want to say something, but I feel obliged to say no. Again, what I really hate is just name it loyalty. Loyalty is the earn and burn. You give me €1, I give you 1 point, etc. This is done, dead. I would say hopefully yes, even if it's still there for many, many utilities and, this kind of company out there. I believe that loyalty is changing. Now let's talk about omni-channel engagement. Let's talk about activation, reactivation, and loyalty is bringing the means, the weapons, because of the reward, because the capability of absorbing and gathering and collecting zero-party data and first-party data, and then capability to make a deep segmentation to become personal to your end user. So loyalty is not done, it's not dead. It's just a way of shifting what loyalty is for and changing eventually the name. But you still, as a brand, need, but I'll let Alex reply here, a kind of platform that we name loyalty for supporting and fulfilling these initiatives. Alex, if you want to.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. No, I think what I'd say, as I sort of alluded to, I think loyalty is a word sometimes to be viewed with skepticism, just based on what the previous conception was of it. We know that people aren't loyal to brands. They're loyal to categories or to subcategories. So we talk about category that we operate in, craft beer. It's a highly fragmented category, and it's if we are chasing after consumers that only buy our brand, we will be chasing after a very small pie. It is more about gaining a greater share of those that buy into the category. And that's, as Mario says, you need sort of a similar weapon to attack that as you might do for loyalty, but it's more about helping to taking actions to make your brand relevant for those consumers, to address the problems that they have and the barriers that stop them from putting your brand in their basket when they shop the category versus a competitor. So we still need tools to address it, but I think, yeah, loyalty to an individual brand is something that is unachievable.